Good evening. Welcome into a Thursday night edition of the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com, brought to you by VIP Play and Edley's Barbecue, where I wish I was right now, but I'm not. I'm home. Semi-long day. Titans were on the field this morning. We talked to Brian Callahan. We watched Titans practice. We talked to a bunch of players coming off the field. We talked to Denard Wilson, Nick Holtz, John Fassel, the new special teams coordinator, who was terrific, wrote about why I think Will Levis should definitely be the leader for the number 2 quarterback job. Got news that Jeffrey Simmons was actually the only guy not in attendance for this team yesterday and today for the first 2 practices of phase 3 of the OTAs. Which this is the big part, right? This is where offense can go against defense, and which is more of a full team thing. It's not that big a deal to not be around for phase 1, which is really conditioning, or phase 2, where you're working with your position group and maybe a little bit with the defense or with the offense. But these practices are a bigger deal, all still voluntary, and guys are, there's not perfect attendance around the league by any means. But the Titans were very close to perfect attendance today and yesterday. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a couple of people who caught my eye, more about the backup quarterback situation, why the Titans are looking for bigger edges. Fassel, who I think is a very interesting character. Talked to James Williams about what team he is on in this 8-team competition that they're having. And they're standing. L'Jarius Sneed and his standing with the team. The inside linebacker competition, I just mentioned James Williams. He's a big part of that. Building this roster from the bottom up. That'll be part of things here. And we've got a few other notes as well. So come on in. Tell your friends. Good conversation to be had here, as well as a new offer from VIP Play. And again, I will tell you about the delicious Restrepo we will talk about, and the delicious food at Edley's Barbecue, where you should be heading for a meal sometime soon. Absolutely. So it's good to see you. Happy to for people to flow in, spread the word, retweet, and all of that. Eric, Jamie, Martin, Josh, good to see you. I know everybody wants to hear about Cam Ward. I thought Cam Ward was pretty solid, poised and the like. Missed a couple throws, but no big deal. But also didn't hit you over the head with anything that was super terrific. In the part of practice that we could film, which is stretch, which is unimportant, and the individual period. In the individual period, Will Levis was going first. Now, before practice, Brian Callahan, had an opening statement. Excuse me. His opening statement was really, don't put too much into who's going first, where. What we do today could be different from what we did yesterday and what we'll do tomorrow. Now, obviously, we don't see yesterday or tomorrow. We only see today. But don't put too much into who's going where. And then later, and I asked Nick Holtz about this to get it on the record and to have more of a conversation about it, Brandon Allen was going first. Now, he laughed at this idea, and he said, it was about the plays, not about the order. But they could very easily, to me, take Brandon Allen's plays and put them third. And they could put Cam Ward's plays first or Will Levis's plays first. It's an easy way. I think he laughed it off and everybody thought it was funny. But I think it's easy to take Brandon Allen's plays and put Brandon Allen's plays first. And then you play Brandon Allen first during that, and you avoid a conversation about if Levis or Cam Ward is in fact working first. So I think that's a pretty easy way to downgrade the conversation. I think Will Levis, he looked fine. He threw a pick at the end to Perry, safety, I think that they claimed off of from New England when he was cut earlier. But I thought Levis was fine as well. They really do. Sorry, I'm trying to get this throat right. They really do rotate the receivers. This has always been the case. The receivers rotate a lot. And so you're going to see a lot of different receivers working with a lot of different guys. So I'm imagining we'll start maybe with some impressions I had and weave in some bigger themes. But let's talk about Simmons first. So I reported anyway, 5 guys weren't seen. Kevin Zeitler, Tyler Lockett, L'Jarius Sneed, Tavondre Sweat, and Jeffrey Simmons. But then it comes to light for me later in the afternoon that 4 of the 5 were on the premises. They just weren't outside during practice. Now we remember during Mike Vrabel's time, he didn't believe in guys being outside to watch practice necessarily if they had rehab or stuff to do. He didn't believe in mental reps. And today there weren't mental reps taken by these guys. Zeitler wasn't around much for the first 2 phases of this. He's the old guy. I think they're easing him into things, and he was working on some stuff inside. Lockett, I think, has a tight hammy from yesterday, so they're being careful. Sneed, we know. We don't know what degree he's dealing with the quad, but we know they do maintenance on the knee all the time. We're not expecting Sneed to participate in much stuff like this at all, and he didn't. Tavondre Sweat, I don't know what's up. I wouldn't believe it to be serious. But Jeffrey Simmons is voluntary workouts. But their roster, I believe, is 91 because Thomas Odukoya still gets that international exception. And so the Tennessee Titans, out of 91 players on a Tuesday and a Wednesday after Memorial Day weekend, out of 91 players, had 90 players show up, which is a phenomenal buy-in for Brian Callahan. And look, Simmons not being there, is it a big deal? In a lot of ways, it is not a big deal, right? I mean, he said he's got no doubt of all the guys on the team. If you're going to have a doubt about one guy being ready, it sure as hell isn't Jeffrey Simmons. And I don't have a doubt about Jeffrey Simmons being ready to play his best when the time comes at all. But I do have a doubt about Jeffrey Simmons in the leadership department. And we've discussed this a lot. And what is the big theme, or one of the big themes for this team right now? They've got these 8 teams that are divided up, that are competing for points. And Jeffrey Simmons, as all of this new leadership is being developed and this new definition of Titans leadership, where it's not about lead by example, but they're redefining it. And to lead, you have to bring guys with you and all of this. And Jeffrey Simmons is not there. Jeffrey Simmons has not been there at all. He's communicated with the coaching staff and with all of that. Everybody, he's not surprising anybody with any of this, but it is interesting that a guy who's been looked at as the number 1 leader on the team, partly because of his leadership, partly because of a dearth of other leadership. I think his leadership, I think I wrote, has been strained, overstretched, and sometimes put into question, often by me, I think fairly, in the round. Is the one guy keeping them from perfect attendance, which would be quite an accomplishment. So they've got that going for them, which is something. A couple guys who struck me. Van Jefferson, sleeveless. He wore sleeveless jersey. I don't know if it cut off the sleeves. It looked like maybe they were tucked in. Guys cut. We were talking about Io Manor, ultimately, like that's what you'd like him to look like a year from now. He looks the part, and in terms of knowing what he's doing and all of that, certainly rank him and should, he hasn't been exceptionally productive, but he has been in the league for a while. Would rank him ahead of a lot of guys, these young guys who you've got big hopes for, that are coming in now, and you have expectations for, but you wouldn't put any of these guys and say, "Oh, they're coming in and they're right past a guy like Jefferson." I noticed DK a lot. I think he may have had the most catches, maybe 3, but on film, I thought his speed was a little bit awkward today. Catch the ball and the burst after the catch was pretty impressive, I thought. And Ed Henry asking a little bit about they certainly focused on speed. Sorry, wrong question. They certainly focused on speed at wide receiver during the draft. Probably hard to tell, but was the speed at wide receiver noticeable? I don't know that overall I went like, wow, this is a really fast group. But I certainly noticed DK looking fast today, and I was impressed with him. Gabe Judy Lawley, who is on the fringe of the cornerbacks, and they've paid some cornerbacks money. The other Harris, I noticed good placement, maybe even above. I think it's Jamari Harris, maybe outranking Marcus Harris, the draft pick. Let's not share that. But Gabe Judy Lawley was playing high with Sneed out, and he got his hands on a couple balls and had good presence. So that's a good start for him, given that he's going to be in a competition with a lot of undrafted rookies, a couple undrafted rookies who got significant signing bonuses. I thought that was an encouraging day for him. He got a couple, and one of them, one of the breakups was on a pass to Oliver, Bryce Oliver, who did not do a good job on a back shoulder pass of turning to come back to the ball. And so I thought that was good. That'll score some points for Gabe Judy Lawley. No Sneed there, and Roger McCreary I saw come out of the building, but we did not notice him on the field, maybe at all. So he might have something going on. We'll go back to Simmons here. Ed Henry says fair criticism on Simmons and his leadership, but perhaps this helps foster new leaders, which is sorely needed. I mean, I think they could foster that new leadership with him there. Matt Oates says that's not a leader. I reached out to his agent, obviously, for comment. I have no direct route to Jeff. I'm blocked by him on Twitter. Not a guy whose cell phone I have, obviously. So haven't gotten anything back from his agent. And so I did the best I could there. Joey Sly, the field goal kicker, John Fassel, Back. Sorry, JT is not here. Sorry about that. Let's retweet and resume. Curious if your internet broke. No, my internet broke. Sorry about that. So I was saying Joey Sly hit 6 of 7, including for 52, wide right on 44. Fassel said he's really liking him. I don't know if they're going to ultimately add a guy. He was talking Fassel like that's a front office decision. I was asking more like, do you feel like you need competition for him or a leg to ease the workload? But didn't get a clear vision on that. They seem happy with him now, and he's really happy to be reconnected with Hecker. Catching punts, Jaquan Jackson, Xavier Restrepo, TJ Sheffield, who is probably the very last. I mean, he made the team off the tryouts from rookie camp. I would rank him as the last wide receiver. DK and Prochet were the guys catching punts. And here's the little nugget about the 8-team competition. I talked to James Williams. He told me he is on Team Skoronski, whose alternate or extra captain is Mason Kinsey. And he said, we're looking bad right now. He thinks they might be in last place. But everything's new now. They get to score some positive points in a way that they could not before. Yeah, John Gall says it's odd. It always feels like we have 2 kickers during this time. But they do not. Ed, like Fassel's response to my question about past years, he kind of said, like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. So I thought maybe it was relevant, because the special teams have been so bad the last few years, and there are guys who've been on those special teams. So I thought maybe it was relevant to him to talk about that, because maybe some of the things that they've done or the attitudes that they had were ingrained. And it seems, he's more of a none of it matters. We're starting from a fresh slate. Why don't we jump ahead and talk about Fassel, who is going to be a terrific talker right now. To have Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, Denard Wilson, and John Fassel is just a incredible 4-pack of coaches who can talk us through things, who are interested in talking us through things, who have a capacity to talk us through things, and really just a fantastic group of guys. So in terms of their willingness and eagerness to talk us through things. So really terrific. Let me go find this Fassel clip here, which I want to share with you. It'll take me just a second to pop over here. Here he is. And this is a Jim Wyatt video. I wasn't recording at this moment. And Jim asked the question in here. But the initial question was kind of, what do they want to be known for?
Relentless with the little wild man in it. So I think on special teams, there's some of that where if you try to be real conservative or real perfect or real scripted or real schemed, I think that prohibits a little bit of the flair that comes with special teams, which is running, hitting, chasing, finishing. So that's what I would love for us to be known for, not the schematics, not even all the big play highlights, just the consistent motor and relentlessness and a little bit of wild man.
Yeah, and you've been known for maybe having a little trickery, having a little imagination on special teams. How much leeway you think Brian's going to give you here?
I'm sure we haven't talked about that a lot. I feel like that's a little bit of been a reputation with the trickery and all that, but I don't like to be known for that, to be honest with you. I think that's part of the game on special teams, but if I would rather be known for something, it would be a really solid and sound special teams unit that goes nuts out there. Yeah.
Pretty cool. A lot more to him than Colt Anderson or his predecessor, whose name has disappeared from my memory banks, which is good here. Ackerman. It's really hard to to lose Ackerman from one's memory banks. So I think I agree here with Trevor. Fassel's a huge upgrade over that inexperienced bleep from last year. Did I see anyone at punt return or kick return? I listed that. Punt return: Jaquan Jackson, Xavier Restrepo, TJ Sheffield, DK, and Prochet. So there you go. For that. Where are we going from here? Sorry. So next thing I want to get to was Sneed. There is a thread about Sneed that is very clear and obvious to me in the way they talk about him. They are very pleased with him when he's here, right? When he's here, which leaves open, and seems clear to me, that they're not wild about him when he's not with them. And I don't think that's strictly about this December 6th incident that he was involved in Carrollton, Texas. I just got off the phone actually with the guy who's going to mediate the civil case. Date's not set for that. He doesn't even know about the case because his scheduling secretary talks to the lawyers. And oftentimes there's a big pause here while the lawyers get their stuff together. Said it could even be a year or more where both sides figure things out to get to a point where they're ready to mediate. So I think it could conceivably be sooner than that the grand jury indicts or decides whether to indict him on the aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge in the criminal case. But listen to the tone of this when he's here. Both Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson said virtually the same thing, and I've got Callahan on it. This is Callahan on L'Jarius Sneed.
The things about L'Jarius is like when he's here and working, he's fantastic. He's all the things that we hope he would be. Certainly, when guys have off-field issues, he's not the first one. He won't be the last. There's a lot of guys that have things going on outside of the building that maybe aren't in the public knowledge, or they're dealing with things with their families. There's a lot of things that happen that just like all of us, you have to separate your personal life and your work life and be able to come to work and focus on the task at hand. I think he's done a good job of that. Certainly, anytime you have distractions off the field, you prefer not to have those. But he's done a good job of handling it and keeping the work here the main thing, and dealing with the things off the field when he has to deal with them. But I would say that's not unique to anybody in particular. I think that happens to a lot more guys than people realize. Again, maybe not necessarily civil cases or court cases, but just life in general. It can be hard to separate sometimes, and I think he's done a good job of it.
Anytime he's in the meetings, Denard Wilson said, he's a perfect young man. Anytime he's in the meetings, he's a perfect young man. I think that's noteworthy. And I did phrase that question to Callahan. I said, what's he like given that he's got this potential indictment hanging over his head? Look, I think most of us have not been in this situation, but I would imagine that there is, I don't know, we've all had something hanging over our head. And I think it has a bearing on our ability to work with a clear head. Maybe not in his instance, but it seems to me an awkward situation. He's getting good reports. So we'll see. Hawkins says, do I think Jeff would have been a captain if he was there? Maybe pushed Skoronski to co-captain because I don't see Kinsey being on this team come roster cuts. Well, I don't know which captain would have been pushed out. I think Skoronski is captain worthy. I don't know that Kinsey is, would have been one of my choices as assistants, but we don't know who the 8 captains are. But yeah, I think if Jeff was around from the start, I think he would have been a guy that was a captain. John, I don't know what you're talking about, John Gall. So moving on from that, couple other nuggets. Callahan talked about Cam really liking hard coaching, and that really being emphasized by his mom. They got to know his mom and dad, obviously, during this. You can't call it a recruiting process because they didn't have to win him. They were getting him if they wanted him. But his mom somehow really made a point to them that Cam liked hard coaching, that she liked the idea of him being coached hard, or that her son made it clear to her that he liked and excelled under hard coaching. So that was interesting to me. He also said, generally speaking, you don't yell at quarterbacks the same way you yell at players at other positions, which was interesting because I think if you're picturing one moment of Brian Callahan last year, it is him screaming at Will Levis coming to the sideline in the Jets game after they had spent a week telling him that he didn't have to make the kind of desperation play he made in Chicago against the Bears when he threw the pick six, shoveling a ball to Tajay Spears that was a lost fumble either in or near the red zone against the Jets, and coming off the field after a turnover where Callahan greeted him with, "What the fuck are you doing?" in a very lip readable moment that created a lot of conversation. And that was a very striking moment. Generally speaking, you don't yell at quarterbacks the way you might yell at other people or other positions. I don't have the end of that word for word, but generally speaking, you don't yell at quarterbacks like that, but you do yell at Will Levis when he's being a bonehead. You yell at him like that in those moments. You can't help it. And I mean, I think we all thought it was understandable. I certainly did. Edley's Barbecue. Go to edleysbarbecue.com and look up the address of the Edley's closest to you, Franklin and Berry Farms, where I broadcast generally on Thursdays. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be with my wife and son as he begins a baseball tournament, which hopefully goes better than his first baseball tournament. Nashville Select, 15U Navy. Franklin, the factory, 5 Points in East Nashville, Sylvan Park, Donaldson, Gallatin, 12 South, Nolensville. Am I missing one? No. Get the fried ribs. Get the fried ribs. If you don't get the fried ribs, get the burnt ends. If you don't get the burnt ends, get the avocado plate. And if you don't get those, get anything on the menu. It is all so good. You cannot go wrong eating at Edley's Barbecue. Will Newman owns the place. Looking at expansion, maybe coming to Clarksville for Dwayne. This place is just a phenomenal restaurant. You walk in there, you do not wait long. If there's any kind of line, it moves super fast. The service is phenomenal. The food is hot. It comes fast. The drinks are cold. They are strong. The beer is super cold. The pretty lady, John Gall said to get the wings. I think that's Sabrina, who was the bartender 2 weeks ago when I was there on a Friday. So she recommends the wings, which I've had also. You can't go wrong at Edley's Barbecue. I'm so grateful to them for being a part of this broadcast and supporting PaulKuharsky.com and the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I can't encourage you enough to go there and to eat there. So check it out and you won't regret it. Everybody in here who's been there goes regularly. Everybody in here who's gone for the first time comes in and says how good it was. And so all of you people should go again. And if you haven't gone, what are you waiting for? You got to get there. Clay P wants to know who stood out to me today. I covered it early on, so you got to go back and listen. Ed Henry asking me any early observations of Moore or Oladejo. 7 is an interesting number for a thick lineman to wear. I've got mixed feelings about it. 42, I don't think looks good on Draymond Jones. 7, I'll have to report back to you about it on Oladejo. But I didn't notice much about either of them. I have to admit, to a degree, at a practice like this, obviously I'm seeing the skill position guys, but I'm also doing a lot of depth charting in my head and on paper to kind of see who plugs in where, which isn't stuff I can necessarily report, but it's stuff that's important to know. Robert Price with the incredible endorsement saying Edley's is amazing. Ed Henry with a kid baseball stuff. He just watched his son throw his final pitch as they lost a tight game in high school state tournament. Very emotional. All things I could look forward to. I dread it already. He's finished his first year of high school. Only 3 more to go, which I dread on many, many levels. And we're looking at an automobile for the boy who turns 16 in October. I'm not really wild about that either, but I remember telling him about all the freedom a bicycle would bring him. And now I'm well aware of all the freedom a car will bring him. So we got that going. Brandon Allen. So Will Levis, I talked about the Brandon Allen stuff. Bigger edges. So we were talking about Femi Oladejo and Draymond Jones. The Titans have gotten a lot bigger at edge. Arden Key now is obviously their lankiest edge, but Harold Landry is gone out of the picture. And they are really talking about setting the edge with bigger edges. Brian Callahan talked about being more direct to the pocket, having a faster influence on the pocket, right? More direct. And Denard Wilson's talking about crushing and collapsing the pocket in a hurry. And that's interesting to me, the idea, and Vrabel talked about that too. I mean, that was the emphasis on Simmons. That was part of Tavondre Sweat. He's a run stopper, but he's also a guy that was going to influence the pocket. Didn't do it as much as we thought he would, or as I expected the 38th pick in the draft to do as they got him. But here's Brian Callahan on big edges.
Yeah, you're trying to set the edge of the defense. There's a physicality that comes with it, especially in the run game. Being able to dent the line of scrimmage and then power rush on top of it. A lot of the sacks you see in this league are just guys that get in a tackle and walk them back into quarterback, and those are parts of the rush game that we got to get better at. I think the totality of the room, sort of from top to bottom, I think is deeper, it's stronger, it's bigger. Those are all things that we were looking for.
It's a little bit of a different philosophy. Now, I think, maybe that changes if you have access to a super bendy edge who is going to be in the backfield on a regular basis, right? They don't have access to that. They didn't have access to that. If you did, I don't think that you would decline it, right? But they didn't. So in the meantime, this idea of being bigger and more physical, one of the things Denard said was kind of look at the Super Bowl. And I think when he's saying look at the Super Bowl, he's saying to a degree, look at the Eagles, right? Look at the Eagles and you see what big crashing the pocket looks like. And, the Eagles certainly have a big degree of that. And you can't bemoan wanting that by any means. And, the Titans had bigger guys. They were more a 4-3, right? When they first got Derek Morgan and when they first had Brian Orakpo, those guys were bigger, thicker guys, right? Maybe not this big and thick, though. I'll have to do some comparison stuff there. But I like the way they're talking. Who doesn't like crashing the pocket? Who doesn't like getting to the quarterback quicker and more directly? Now, again, a bendy, fast, speed edge can get there pretty quickly off the edge. Might be 2 steps more, but he's beating a block more cleanly, and he doesn't have to get through as much traffic And so I don't know how you guys feel about that, but and Ed's interpreting that as no more dropping edges in coverage. I don't know about that. Can I see this team inquiring about the price for Jalen Ramsey if they get desperate for corner? What's going to make them desperate for corner? I mean, Jalen Ramsey is going to be off the market before the Titans suffer 3 devastating injuries at corner. I think that, again, I've written about this and I've talked about it multiple times. They gave over $200,000 in signing bonuses to a couple undrafted corners. They expect these guys to be on this roster or on the practice squad for sure. So I think they feel pretty good about what they have at corner. If Sneed's a problem, Sneed's a problem. But you've got Brownlee, who's everybody expects to grow from where he was. They've got Baker, who was pretty impressive last season. They've got McCreary in the slot, who I think they like. And then you've got some competitive guys behind that. Marcus Harris, the draft pick. A couple of these guys I'm talking about who are, on the back end. I've got to call up my depth chart piece, which I encourage you guys to, and I'll be updating that regularly, the depth chart. But these are some names you should probably get to know: Clarence Lewis, Jermani Harris, Davian Ross, Jalen Kimber, and Amani Oruwariye, who they picked up from Dallas, who has some good experience, and who all of whom were in the mix today. Those guys could make up a pretty good corner group, though you haven't heard of a lot of them. They are not going to go out and get an expensive older guy like Jalen Ramsey at any position. It just throws things off. Like the best example would be Hendrickson. Like Hendrickson can make a huge difference on this team if they put him in at edge. But to give up the draft picks it would take to get Hendrickson, and to throw off the pay scale and all of that stuff, and then Hendrickson, 3 years from now, where this team would really be, 3 years into Cam Ward and at its peak, Hendrickson would be ready to, start to dip. It just doesn't, timing wise, make it go. And so you don't think Sneed will be impactful. Well, other players can step up and be impactful. Brandon read my piece on Jeff not being there. Do I view it as a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing in terms of him being prepared. I think he'll be fine and ready to go when the time comes. On the leadership thing, which is a huge off-season theme for them, I don't think it's great. Dick butt kiss fun, ha ha ha. If Callahan keeps insisting on Levis getting first team reps, is Ward athletic enough for some reps at corner? It's ridiculous. Ward's not playing anywhere but corner, and this is the second day of meaningful practice, and Levis is not getting any more reps than Ward, and Brandon Allen got the lion's share of first team reps today, and that he's not the starting quarterback. Relax. Yeah, this is a fair point by John Gall. I guess the bendy ones don't set the run edge that well, which is true. But you can have some bendy ones who play passing downs. And you could find premier bendy ones. I mean, Miles Garrett bends pretty well, and I'd be fine with him setting the edge, right? So I think you'd be just fine there. Got a couple more videos to share here. Inside linebackers. Now, this video is long, but it goes multiple directions. This is Denard Wilson talking about inside linebacker competition next to Cody Barton. We know there you got James Williams, you got Cedric Gray, and you've got God, I lose a name virtually every time we talk, and my old age is getting embarrassing. David Gabenda, Anthony Orji, Otis Reese, Curtis Jacobs, Amani Burney. But the big three here are Cedric Gay, James Williams, Otis Reese. I don't know. You got to hope somebody emerges out of those three. And both Coach Callahan and Denard Wilson talked about this really not going to get anything close to a verdict until guys have the pads on and are hitting at that. It's not unlike on the line. But then Denard Wilson goes into a little bit about roster building that I found pretty interesting. So I want you to hear this. Stick with him because he's good on inside linebackers, but then he gets better on something else.
Extremely vital. First of all, great addition getting Cody. He's a leader. He's a guy that can orchestrate the defense. He's ahead of it. He studies. He's smart. Love that we have him. But in terms of the other position, it's kind of everybody's getting an opportunity to rotate them. Cedric has played some Mike, have put Cody at the wheel a little bit when Ced's in there. James has been in there. Anthony, all the guys that we have played. And, right now they're getting a feel for the defense, understanding what they're supposed to be doing. But when the pads come on, they'll separate themselves, and the best man is going to play. And then also we talk about position flexibility. Some guys can do things better than others. So there's always a chance of first and second down having players out there. You can have third down, dime linebacker, whatever it may be. But the competition is wide open, just like the DB, the young guys we talked about in the DB room. And what it's going to do is going to make us better from the bottom up. Organizations, they strive when it's built from the bottom up, not top down. And, going through last year, at the end of the year, when we kind of fell off a little bit, the depth wasn't there. Right now, we got young guys that we're creating depth. Some guys have played. So I'm excited about the nucleus and how we're going to build it from the bottom up. And these guys are giving everything they have. And I love the work and the effort that they're putting in right now.
Organizations thrive when they're built from the bottom up. Now, I don't know any organization that's striving to build from the bottom up, right? You want first-round draft picks who are anchors, second-round draft picks, third-round draft picks that fill in your front of your depth chart, the top of your depth chart, to supplement previous first, second, third rounders who are getting second contracts. Now, certainly you want good depth, but I don't know if the Baltimore Ravens set out to build bottom up. I think he's talking about special situation here where you're bad to start with, and out of being bad to start with, then you've kind of got no choice. I think you're kind of building a little bit from the top with the limited resources you have, and from the bottom up at the same time, and kind of catching up. I could see that, right? Top down and bottom up simultaneously, but not strictly bottom up. But it's interesting to hear him talk about that, and I think it warrants more discussion. So I thought that was interesting. Ed Henry with a good question here. What's more important to me? Guys like Brownlee and Baker becoming solidified starters, or guys like Williams or Gray doing the same at linebacker? I think that inside linebacker position, the second inside linebacker position, is the least important spot on the team. Now, I've covered for, I think this is going to be year 28 or 29, a franchise that has devalued that position. And so I've probably got a little proximity bias to that, where I don't value it because I have seen it not valued. But I think only the premier Fred Warner-esque inside linebackers are real difference makers. It's the first guy off the field. And you can plug in just the guy. Titans went to the Super Bowl with Baron Wortham, who's a great guy. But he was probably the worst player on that defense, playing middle linebacker in a 4-3. I just don't see it as hugely important. If you and when they had Randall Godfrey, that was probably the best the defense was, 2000, and he got shafted in the not too long, relatively short order. because Floyd promised him a renegotiation that he didn't get, or promised him he wouldn't cut him, and he did. But I think that's the least important position on the field. Just survive there without paying. Find guys, and the Titans did well there for a while with Avery Williamson and Jayon Brown and the like, and then it all went to shit with Monty Rice, which was unfortunate. What are things that I, as a media member, look for at OTAs? I mean, I'm watching and seeing what happens. You know, when there's a number one draft pick quarterback, I'm really intent on the quarterback. You know, but when they bring in two veteran offensive linemen, I watch the offensive line a little bit more, but Zeitler's not out there, so it's not important. Does Burks look heavier? Yeah, he does look a little bit heavier. I'm very impressed, though, that Burks is doing what he was doing today at this stage of rehab. Hey, join paulkuharsky.com, $7.50 a month, really a reasonable price compared to what you pay for a cocktail or for a cup of coffee. You read me, you read James Foster, who's soon to have a very intensive film review of Jarvis Brownlee. I know a lot of you love the film review, and he breaks down a guy and scores him in all sorts of different categories. We'll look at him. You'll hear from Mike Herndon. You'll hear from Blake Bedingfield. You'll get news like that Jeffrey Simmons was the only guy not there. You support local independent journalism. I'm the best connected guy on the beat. I promise you that. It's really, really worth it. I think people in the comments here will tell you. You can get a text alert that podcasts like this are happening. You be a member of paulkuharsky.com private Facebook group where you talk amongst yourselves, get some good ticket exchanges, tickets at face value a lot of times from people who are bailing. Out of towners get information on where to hang out, all kinds of stuff like that. So I urge you, please, to join and become a member. I also want to tell you about VIP Play, which is our other terrific partner here. Premier betting experience where everybody plays like a VIP. If you go there and sign up now at VIP Play, use the code PaulTN and you've got extra bonus awaiting you. If you sign up for VIP Play, you get a welcome bonus of $100 when you make a $5 bet or more. And if you use my code, you get an extra $50 when you use the code PaulTN. So $150 of bonus bets just for making a $5 bet. It's easy to sign up. It's a very intuitive app, sleek and everything. Available only in Tennessee. Go to VIP Play, download the app, be part of a premier betting experience where everybody plays like a VIP. Again, use the code PaulTN as you sign up. Instead of $100 off your first $5 bet, you get 150 bonus bucks. A good deal for members and friends of PK. Use code PaulTN. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and over in Tennessee to bet. You'll want to use these bets on the Yankees, who win a lot more often than they lose, and on the Knicks, who will clearly win Game 5 at home at the Garden, because that's what the league wants before the Pacers wrap this thing up in Indiana. Nintova says, Latham moving. How's that looking since you've been watching the O-line, even without Zeitler? And after seeing him on Bussing with the Boys, I got to say the kid impresses me. Great head on his huge shoulders. Yeah, I talked to him today about Levis and how Levis has comported himself since, in the last couple of days with Cam Ward's presence and everything, and knowing that he's, going to be the backup at best. And, Latham's a good talker, smart guy. Took everything in stride. It doesn't feel insulted by being moved from left to right. He still is a very, very big man and wants to lose more weight, but kind of figured out that playing heavy as he did at Alabama wasn't going to work for him in the NFL halfway through the season. Now, Bill Callahan likes big offensive linemen. So I think that the coaching staff, took their shot with him as big also, and came to realize in sync with him that they weren't going to get their best football out of him at that size. And so you live and learn, I suppose. Should they have projected better? I think it's easy to have hindsight on that. Wasn't the key to the Titans having a bad year. There was so much stuff going on that, one small piece to that, but maybe they should have projected it better. So we shall see. Ed Henry says, been at it for almost an hour and not a question about Restrepo. Sophisticated group. I put out a 3-minute video of a receiver drill in which each receiver caught two short passes. And it was interesting how just people destroyed people. Mason Kinsey dropped one. Calvin Ridley dropped one. And people acted like, same old, same old. I'm more of a, hey, that's one rep, which doesn't define anything here. Mason Kinsey's certainly not known as a dropper. I think his time is up here. But that hardly defines Mason Kinsey. Calvin Ridley needs to be more consistent and more reliable, but I don't think him dropping that one pass during that one snippet is super telling in any way, shape, or form. And as luck would have it, Ed, the last clip I have to play here is, in fact, Xavier Restrepo. How about that? It's just a coincidence. But first, we'll go to Tom Miller. I don't really know what you mean here, Tom. Do reps look fairly similar, or is there a stark difference and players stand out? I mean, reps between one guy and the next guy? I mean, if you're looking at a individual rep during a positional period, the rep for the very best guy at the top and the very worst guy, the worst undrafted rookie free agent, look very different. And they should look very different. So if you're talking about a 5-year veteran who's been doing it for a long time, he should do it a lot better than a kid out of Wright State or some such who is doing it for the second day, against a receiver, against a cornerback, or in 11 on 11. So I don't know if that answers your question. Do I think they will add another veteran receiver? Who? Lockett was the veteran receiver that they added. I don't think they have a room for more receivers. They're already at a position where they're going to cut somebody that they like and have them on the practice squad. So Allen didn't get the bulk of first team reps. He had 4 total pass attempts. Who had the most reps with Ridley? That's the first team reps. Yeah, that's true. But Ridley rotates through multiple quarterbacks, so you can't really count it like that. Who had the most reps? Yeah, the most reps were the 2 top quarterbacks, who are named Cam Ward and Will Levis. And I see that you read Wyatt's snap counts, which is great for you. But Allen was working first. And by definition, the guy who goes first is first. So that's how that works, Mr. Buttkiss. Just a little education. No, Vibe Runner asks, are there any concerns on the special teams coach not watching tape on players thoroughly? And I don't think so. He comes in and he watches practice thoroughly and can make judgments based on what he sees there. He's a very respected special teams coach. He knows what he's doing. He watches much tape as he needs to know what he needs to know off tape, and the rest he can watch and assess at practices. And don't think he needs to see much of that to know what a guy can do. And like he said, he's had, little quick guys who could do great things, and big slow guy, all variations of guys who you expect could do things who couldn't, and who you expected couldn't do things who could. And he knows what he's doing. Dick wants to continue to go here. First team is not who takes the first. First team is the starters. That's like saying if you run out of the tunnel first, you're the starter of the game. For the purposes of our conversation and what they're doing to disguise it, the first team is the first team that goes. I don't know how else to explain it to you. I'd invite you to come out to watch, but you're not allowed to come out and watch. So what they're doing is intentionally disguising like who's doing what. I don't know what to tell you. And in terms of devising who gets more or outranks who in terms of Levis and Ward, there's no real doing it right now. And so to you, who gets more is the first team. Yeah, the starters are obviously the first team. And right now, the starter at quarterback is going to be Cam Ward, but for whatever reason, they're not saying that. Brandon Allen is definitely not the starter, but he was the first team quarterback. Pretty simple. Let's talk Xavier Restrepo for a minute. Interesting guy. He, Io Manor, DK, Cam Ward, and one other guy who I'm doing a disservice to by not listing him, are showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day working together, which is pretty cool. A way for them to bond and a way for them to get ahead. Cam Ward is definitely an early morning guy, and he's got some guys going with him. But here's Restrepo. Biggest question I had is kind of what is he seeing in terms of the speed translating at this level so far?
I mean, again, I just base my life off opportunities, so I'm super glad that, Coach Borgonzi and Coach Callahan gave me an amazing opportunity for here. And I mean, that's just what I'm going to take with me and just run with it,
How do you think your speed measures up out here compared to maybe what you expected?
Right. I mean, we're playing football, so there's no underwear Olympics anymore, so we got to put a ball down. You got to know your plays. And I feel like if you play confident, you play fast.
If you play confident, you play fast. Well, I mean, that's nice philosophically, but if you can only run so fast, you can only run so fast, no matter how confident you are. I think, as I've said repeatedly, I think that's going to be an issue for him ultimately. And I think that's why his ceiling out of this, barring some severe injury stuff around him, is going to be practice squad. I think that Will Levis needs to be the backup quarterback on this team. I think people are overrating the safe play of Brandon Allen as compared to Levis. If you read my piece at paulkuharsky.com, I'll say this. Levis has been intercepted or fumbled 33 times in 1,150 snaps. That's 2.87% of the time. Allen has been intercepted or fumbled 12 times in 615 snaps. That is 1.95% of the time. In exchange for 0.92%, I don't see choosing a guy with no great traits over a guy with an electric arm who will be 7 years younger on opening day. I think Will Levis is allowed to get better. I see more ceiling, and I don't see Brandon Allen as some big, safe guy who's going to come in a substitute situation or to start multiple games if Cam Ward goes down, who's going to help you not lose a game while you lean on the run and on defense. The guy has completed 56.7% of his passes in the league. He's got 11 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. His passer rating is 76.2. This is not some solution. This is super below average, bad backup quarterback. It doesn't solve anything to me. I'd rather a guy that at least has some sort of potential to get better. And Allen is what Allen is. Levis may continue to suck, but there's potential for Levis to get and be better. And I will take that. I'll find a question or two if you have them, and we'll wrap this bad boy up. Safe quarterbacks, Ed says, are good if you have the lead and your starter goes out. What happens the next week if he has to play? And I'm not granting you that Allen is a safe quarterback. Yeah, Tom, there's no doubt that Cam Ward is a starting quarterback on this team. Who were the new coaches that Denard was talking about? Well, there's new cornerback coach. He said 2 new coaches on his side of the ball. New cornerback coach. Inside linebackers the same. Outside linebackers is the same. Safeties is the same. So off the top of my head, I'm coming up a little bit short. Busy day for us today, Luke says. Tired? No, it's a full work day. I don't have too many full work days in May, so it feels good. I am starving, and there's some food waiting for me, so I'm coming. Any hot takes? I don't really do hot takes. Some people are saying my Levis take is a hot take, so you can have that. Chris says, is it the worst kept secret that they're building up Levis's offseason improvements for trade value, or do I think it's honest? Well, I mean, he spent 6 weeks with a guy who's regarded as one of the top quarterback gurus around. Like, do you think they're fooling other teams into trading for him in a way that, like, teams know what he's been? His film's out there. It's not secret film. So, like, you think some team's going to get fooled into paying more for him based on what they say? Doesn't work that way. I think they probably trade him, and I think he's not worth very much at all. And I think it's stupid to go with Brandon Allen over Will Levis, unless Will Levis is a real problem. And I don't think he'll be a real problem. I think he'd probably rather be somewhere else too. But I think, I'm not comparing this in the least to A.J. Brown. This is nowhere near an A.J. Brown situation. Everybody got that? Nowhere near an A.J. Brown situation. But you don't let circumstances force a trade if keeping the guy is better for your team. And having Will Levis on the team is better than having Brandon Allen as your backup. And so who gives a shit about it? Might be a little uncomfortable for somebody or whatever. Do what's best for the team. Well, what's best for the team is having the best player, the better option of the 2 options on the team. Yeah. Now, Sam, makes the best counter argument to this. Project backups are for teams with established veterans. But Will Levis has played more than Brandon Allen, is my counter to that. I just gave you the numbers. He's played, I think, twice as many snaps. Will Levis has played 1,150 snaps, and Brandon Allen has played 615 snaps. So how is Brandon Allen some big, much more experienced guy? Because he's been in the league 6 years, sitting around holding clipboards? That makes him that much more valuable? I don't know that I buy that logic. I don't know that I buy that logic. I think in general, I've adopted this theory. Kevin Seifert, my friend who covers the Vikings, I think is the first guy that turned me on to this. Is like, why do we like all these backups who we know can't come in and do anything? And everybody thinks it's some like safe thing. Why not fill up with backups who might suck, but at least have an upside and might do something? The other guys are going to suck. Like, so you want safe suck and you take safe suck. Well, why not take might suck, might do something? And I'm on the might suck, might do something train, as opposed to the almost guaranteed to be below average. Easton Freeze. We were arguing on text the other night. I really I think JC still looks very big. He was with his shirt off today, and I thought he would appear skinnier than he appeared today. But as you know, Easton, I don't really like to to harp on what a guy's body looks like, unless I see it really affecting his football. And there was no football played today, as we know. Yeah, Dick Butkus. Listen, I appreciate all of you coming. It was an enjoyable conversation. I didn't think we'd go an hour and 5, and I'm famished. I ate snacks in the Titans press room today. That's what I had. And I'm grateful that they provided the snacks as well as the Dr. Pepper Zero. But that's all I got for you. Eat at Edley's Barbecue. Go sign up using Paul TN at VIP Play. I'm telling you, you're going to like the betting experience there. And using that code gets you an extra free $50 in bets, which you know you're going to turn into more than that. So go do that. Sign up for paulkuharsky.com. Extreme value. And you're going to make that money with that bet that we just talked about at VIP Play. And don't block the box, and be sure to lock your locks. I really appreciate you. It's good to see you in the evening. And next week, maybe we'll be back on our regular schedule. See ya. Ending stream.